Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. My name is Nick and today guys we're going to be jumping down into the world of XRP, taking a look at what's been going on most recently and what we think is likely to happen next. As I get into the video, if you find it useful and informative, smash the like button, I do appreciate that. If you're new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so you will stay up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. And if you haven't yet joined us in Discord, check it out, linked in the description down below. It's a fantastic community talking crypto 24/7. It's completely free and I don't think you'll be disappointed by what you find down there, so why not go ahead and check it out. Okay, let's jump right down into this. I was just clearing out some of the old analysis there so we can clean this up and get a nice view over to what is going on. So let's talk about where we were in the previous video. We were expecting a bit of a low down here at the 37.1 to 37.64. We can see that we wicked down close to this target range, but we failed to actually hit it. So we had a low of 37.74 here, and obviously we can see just narrowly missing that box there. So we can see that we have completed this structure to the downside here, although technically not correct because it's not an ABC structure, it's actually just a WXY, but you can kind of see it's being illustrated for ease of use here on YouTube as A, B, and C. Now, to the upside, we can see that we have come up higher than our origin here and the A wave on our slightly higher level. Okay, so we can argue that we might be done with this move to the upside. It's a little bit short, actually, if I just pull that back. We were expecting 41.12 as a typical kind of movement for the C wave, but the minimum expectation is essentially a double top right up here. So we can argue that we have completed this structure as well. Although it could also equally be still in play, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why that is. So let's go ahead and remove this horizontal line, but we'll leave that one in and remove the Fibonacci retracement tool. So the reason that this could still be in play is that we haven't breached the low, which is down here. I'll go label that on at 37.74. Okay, so we haven't breached this low point down here at 37.74. So therefore, we are just in a ranging market between these two key levels. Now, although we peaked up just here and into our supply box, this one here, we can see that we just tapped on this area, then got rejected. And this is something that happened over this side as well. You can kind of see we end up tapping into the supply range and just falling back down. Now, the reason that I say that it's possible that we haven't yet finished this move to the upside is that the structure of this move to the upside here basically makes me feel, just by looking at it, that it hasn't completed. We can't see a clear-cut structure to it. On the micro scale, if you were to go down lower than the hourly chart, we could probably see there's some movements inside there that look like they're completed and all that kind of stuff. But on this hourly chart, it doesn't look like we're actually finished this structure. We then come down in a very overlappy corrective move. We can see that right in here. We can label this up in a multitude of different ways. It doesn't really matter. I think to keep it nice and simple, we can just look at this as a corrective three-wave structure like this, and then we move up, and we also move up into that minimum, which I said the minimum is going to be a double top. You can kind of see it right in here, and so we can kind of argue that maybe we've finished moving to the upside here. Again, we end up in a very similar situation as we are with this bigger macro piece, in the way that until we kind of pierce lower than the B wave or higher than the C wave, we could go in either direction, right? So we want to wait for confirmation of those directions. Are we going to come down, lower than the origin level down here? And I'll go ahead and just put another line in there, and I'll remove that one off so we keep it nice and simple. So essentially what I'm talking about here, guys, just to keep it really clean, we have a ranging market right here on the kind of smaller scale of things. And we also have a ranging market here on a slightly larger scale. Okay, so these two things are going on at the same time, and we kind of see this dissecting down. This bigger one on the left, this is a bigger macro time frame stuff. This would probably be a 4-hourly kind of sideways ranging market. Even though we pierced above it briefly, we've gone right back down into it. And then down here, we've got this hourly view, right? And until we kind of go above this level or below this level, technically speaking, both are possible. Now, I think we have a higher probability of a break to the upside, but that could potentially be short-lived. And the reason for that is we'd have to see a very explosive move out of this area if we wanted to really get confidence in the market. Now, the concern here is that we have this correction coming down, correction coming up, and we come down in a correction like this, and we come out of our bigger macro, and we come down maybe even into our lower expectations. And all we've done here really is just range in this market for a while. So I'm going to park that across there for a second because it's not a guarantee. That was measured on some other kind of count over this side. We don't want to kind of think about that messing around on this right-hand side. So when we have this kind of scoped out and we kind of think, okay, we have this bearish situation, but our momentum isn't really favorable for that, then it might mean that actually we go and on a slightly different scale here, like this, and then once we have that brief little moment to the upside, we then come down like so. Either way, this still would potentially stay above this low level down here at 37.74, which would then put into play that all of this is a big ranging market from down here at this low point to our high point, back down to our low point to come back up into our supply range at a later date. So you can kind of see how all this market, it doesn't move in straight lines, and ranging markets are incredibly difficult because essentially it just bounces between a couple of key levels and it tricks people into thinking that you're going long or you're going short, and you kind of get stopped out very, very quickly, right? You get these fake breaks like this one up here, for example, and then only comes right back down and liquidates all those people that were going long thinking that you're going to the moon. Likewise, the same can happen when you're going short on the market. Right down here, for example, we pierced this low point, we liquidated a load of people, maybe some people came in and wanted to kind of short the market because we went down into a lower low, and then bam, the next thing you know, you're right back up here and you're getting liquidated, right? So ranging markets are incredibly difficult. You want to be really cautious with them. You don't want to jump in too soon, and you definitely don't want to jump in too late, right? You kind of want to get a good balance to it. So my point here is that when the markets are this indecisive and they are bouncing around a lot and no one really knows exactly what direction it's going to go in next, you have to kind of wait for confirmation. Okay, now we can use Elliott wave theory to help us understand where things are going. Personally, I don't really care too much about these micro movements. What I would care about are these larger plays, right? And whether or not we're going to come back up into our supply box. Now, I think there's a higher probability of coming up into our supply box right now, and this is ranging between 40 and 43.74. I think this is where the main bulk of sellers are, and all of this down here is just playing around, manipulating and grabbing as much liquidity as I can, but essentially this is the desired goal. The goal is to come up into our supply box. Elliott wave theory kind of tells us that all we're doing right now is potentially right down in this lower range here is a sideways B wave movement, okay? And this whole yellow box area that I'm just drawing on here is just a sideways trade to get us up into that supply box in a bigger way, okay? So just kind of bear these things in mind. I will delete that off so we don't have it too complicated. Okay, so from an Elliott wave theory point of view, I think there's a high probability of a move to the upside, but do expect there to be potentially a move down before we move up, right? In fact, I think if we were to put this into a timeline of a series of events, I think we go up, we then go down, and then we go up into the supply box, okay? So up, then down, then up again, and that's really where we end up in that higher range. Now, we're oversold on the 1 hour chart. We're also oversold on the 4 hour chart, okay? So if I come up into our 4 hour, you can also see that we're down in this oversold area, but we're not quite there yet, okay? That means that we might see a small push upwards on the hourly, and then we come back down again, come fully oversold on the 4 hourly chart, and maybe also at the same time bring in our 8 hour chart finally in line with our 4 and our 1 hour. That will allow us the growth potential to come up into our supply box on the larger macro timescales, right? Such as the 8 hour, maybe even the daily. Now, the daily does need a correction to the downside, so the next move to the upside would cement us in a nice overbought position. So if we were to go up into our supply box between that 40 and 43 cent range, we would then obviously see the ability or have the ability to kind of see an overbought 1 hour, an overbought 4 hour, an overbought 8 hour, 12, 16, 20, and daily, which will then bring us in line quite nicely with a potential weekly move to the downside. So all in all, I think Elliott wave theory has given us a pretty clear indication that do expect some volatility where we are, do expect price to come down, to go up, to come down, and so forth. But ultimately, the bigger macro piece is that we have to have a bigger, much more major correction before we can really get comfortable in thinking that we have some longevity in the price action of XRP. So when we come back down into our hourly chart and we start taking a look at it from a smart money concepts point of view, what do we see about XRP? Well, we can see that right now we are right in the sweet spot of buying potential. That's right down here in this green area. Okay, so here we can see all this green. This is order blocks. Okay, these order blocks are stacked on top of each other. There are 3 of them. I can see the small one, which is where I'm right now. The one above that is basically a slightly larger block. And then there's one that sits right in the background of that that's even larger. This is all just below the equilibrium, which is basically a 50% level between our discount and our premium. So we know that we are in the lower side of things. We have a strong low and a weak high, basically telling me that we're likely to see a push back up into that supply box and the premium zoning at some point between 40 and 43 cent, if I can get my words out. So essentially this also from a smart money concepts point of view tells me that we are likely to see that move to the upside. Not only are we seeing the fact that we have these order blocks right here and that we will have to fight past equilibrium, but we do have a strong high and a weak high and a strong low, indicating that there is upward momentum still available to us, not only on the oscillator, but also on our smart money concepts indicator. We have one other thing in our arsenal, though, that helps us understand that there's a high probability of a move to the upside. Not only is 𝗕𝗧 theory telling us this, but we have a change of characteristic on this side here, and then we had a break of structure right here. Now, we haven't had any major break or change of characteristics to the downside. This basically tells us that these are still in play, and we should be expecting a move to the upside. Okay, so feeling a little bit short-term bullish on XRP. I think there's a move to the upside to be had here, even though it will potentially be only minor and will only last, maybe a week or so. I think there is potential to the upside for XRP. This potential to the upside will be short-lived, as I said, and I would expect a further correction to the downside at a weekly scale, which will mean potentially a 50% drop. That might sound scary, but that's actually pretty natural and pretty common in the space. There's going to be a lot of profits taken, and I expect most coins, not just XRP, anything like that, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, ADA, XRP, BNB, you name it, I think that most of them are going to have pretty serious corrections on their hands. And this is because we've moved up quite significantly, at least on many altcoins. Now, XRP has not moved as significantly as many of the other altcoins have in the space. A lot of profits have already been taken, and I expect a lot more to come as well. So I don't want to rule anything out at this stage in terms of where I think price action on XRP can go. I think we could see a pretty significant correction. Now, as I said, I expect further upside in the short term, so do enjoy that, but I think that's going to be short-lived, and I do expect further downside. And I think that is also what is being indicated to us here on our charts. So on our hourly chart from a smart money concepts point of view, we can see that there's bullish momentum, bullish indication for moves to the upside. As we come up into our larger time frames, however, we can see the opposite. We can see that we have a weak high, okay, and a strong low that's really far apart. Okay, so we can have that potential move up higher if we needed to. As I said, currently we're at 43 cent as the maximum level, so double top scenarios. We do have a break of structure up here, okay, and that's a positive, but we haven't yet got the change of character to the downside. We're above the equilibrium, but we're heavily overbought. Now, if I take this to a weekly time frame, scale this down, bring this in here, we can see that the strong low is much, much lower. This is all the way down at 10 cent, whereas the weak high is significantly higher at 197. We are way below the equilibrium, and there is a sell order block right here. Okay, we do not have a change of characteristic at a major level telling us that we can see significant upside. Instead, we have a small change of characteristic that was bullish, that got overwritten right away as another change of characteristic to the downside, and there is nothing else remaining here. Okay, so expect further downside on XRP until we can see the correct structures emerging that allow us to think that we are moving up. Not only did we have a change of character here, we also had a break of structure on the way down, or we were hoping that this was going to be cementing us in a little bit more, but instead that's been reversed on us. So expect further downside until otherwise indicated. Okay, so essentially here we are below the equilibrium. We have the order blocks blocking our moves to the upside. So that really is kicking in a limit at around 55 cent. Don't expect more than that. Although we have a weak high, and I think on a much bigger scale here, we have got some bullish indications. We do have a change of characteristic on this weekly time frame, indicating that we will eventually be breaking to the upside and potentially going up much higher than the 197 that we've seen so far. But to think of that happening anytime soon, I think is a little bit too optimistic. So expect some volatility on XRP, and I think I will leave the video right there. If you found it useful and informative, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you're new, subscribe, and if you haven't joined us in Discord, check it out, linked in the description down below. Until the next one though, guys, have a fantastic day.